You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Mark Reed and Ted Durden, only on LA Talk Radio.
Good evening, and thanks for tuning in to the show. I'm your host, Ted Durden.
And I'm Mark Reed, a West Coast Republican, and Ted is a Southern Democrat. Here to talk about the political issues of the day without getting all WWF on each other.
Exactly. If this is your first time tuning into The Voice of Reason, it's a politically driven show where civil discourse is the order of the day, where Mark and I believe there are more things that unite us than there are that divide us.
Absolutely.
There's been a whole lot of things going on in the news recently. Most specifically, the hot topic of the day has been the recent increase in mass shootings. And that's something that we want to talk about. If you have any comments, feel free to call into the show. Mark the number.
At 818-570. Again, 570-5085. It's going to be a lively discussion. We really want to hear from you on this one because it's a major topic about the shootings, about the root causes of the shootings, and what we should be doing. Also, the political discourse that we're watching on both sides of the aisle that are really throwing the blame at each other and not really addressing that root cause. I shared something with you in the green room, Ted, which I'm going to share with everybody here, which I saw and I thought was really a great comment. It says,
feel free.
Being taught to avoid talking about politics and religion has led to a lack of understanding of politics and religion. What we should have been taught was how to have a civil conversation about a difficult topic.
And that's what this show is all about. That's what it's all about. What has concerned myself and concerned Mark as well, I'm sure with the rest of America out there, has been the recent spike in mass shootings. What I found most disturbing is a few statistics. For instance, between January 1st of this year and August 4th of this year, there have been 251 mass shootings. Now, you might want to stop and think, okay, what qualifies as a mass shooting? Typically, they consider a mass shooting when there have been 4 or more people injured or killed. And that's a scary statistic. And you have to wonder, okay, why is that happening right now? Now, there's on both sides of the political aisle, everybody is very eager to point blame. They want to blame some of the hateful rhetoric that Donald Trump has spouted, the way that he has demonized and villainized immigrants, specifically those that come across the southern border. But I think it runs deeper than that, in my opinion. Everybody thinks that the answer is gun control. Now, there's been a lot of debate about the fact that because of the fact that gun control has been left to the states, that's why they want Congress to act to put forth some sort of national referendum from gun control, do deeper, more detailed background checks.
Well, Ted, a certain amount has been left up to the states, but realistically there's a skeleton framework that has been demanded by the federal government. You know, the background checks, the FBI background check.
Sure.
You have your state DOJ background checks as well. But the problem that there is, because you still have to have a background check. Everybody thinks there's all these loopholes, you know, going to a gun show, you can just buy a gun and walk out with it. That's not true. You still have to process the weapon through an FFL. You still have to go through a background check. You still have to do all of the same things. The problem that we have is that there's no uniformity. So a universal background check, I agree. I think there should be a universal background check that is standardized in all 50 states without a question in my mind. But I think it needs to even go further than that. I also believe, just like when you get your first driver's license, you have to go through a certain amount of courses. You have to go through a proficiency driving test, actual physical driving test. So when a person goes in and buys a gun for the first time, okay, this is my personal feeling. When a person goes in to buy a gun for the first time, they should have to go through some basic training. This questionnaire that they do of a gun safety certificate, let me tell you, if you can't pass that, you shouldn't be walking, you shouldn't be owning a gun, you shouldn't be driving. I mean, it's a moronic test. But it's some basic things to give the gun shop kind of an idea, or the state an idea that you know a little bit about guns. But that doesn't go far enough. Weapons, guns of any kind, are a tool to kill things.
That's exactly.
That's
what
all
it's
it
for.
is. It's a tool to kill things.
Or to maim. Or to maim.
Or to maim.
Or
Well,
to
you don't
maim.
really want to maim anything.
Right.
But the truth of it is, everybody stands on the Second Amendment. Okay, the Second Amendment right. In my honest opinion, the Second Amendment does one thing. It gives you the right to choose whether or not you want to own a gun. Okay, you have to assess your circumstances. Do I live in the inner city where it's peaceful, it's quiet, there's no real big crime in the city, the cops can show up in a minute and a half? Do I need a gun? Nah, you probably don't need one. Okay,
Well,
but I have houses up in the mountains.
Right.
Okay, if I call the cops, they're going to get lost. Okay, they're not going to show up for half hour, or if they don't even show up at all. So I want to have a gun there. Second Amendment gives you that personal choice whether you want to own one or not. Now the state has the right to regulate certain amount of rules of responsibility. You have to have a safe. You have to have gun locks. You can't have them loaded and laying around the house if you have children in the house. There's certain things the state has the right to regulate to create responsible gun owners.
Yeah, but let me just stop you there for a minute, though.
Yes.
And I hear everything that you're saying, but here's the problem. It doesn't matter, really and truly. And this is just my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with it. That's fine. It doesn't matter what steps you put into place, what laws you put into place, what legislature you pass. It's like I've said before, you can't legislate morality, and you cannot. And there was a movie that was done with Tom Cruise called The Minority Report. And in the Minority Report, they had psychics that could anticipate exactly what one person was going to do. Let's talk about another real favorite movie of mine, and I'll tie that in real quick with it was The Avengers, when the fact that they had come up with this gun that was going to kill all people who they believed, based on an algorithm, that was going to commit some sort of crime. My point is this. You cannot dictate human behavior. You may try to anticipate it,
Right.
but you cannot dictate it. There was a mass shooting that happened. For instance, the one that happened in Walmart is a perfect example. Law-abiding citizen, never had a problem, had no history of violence, got fired, went in, killed his boss, and shot up the place. Now, there is no way that could be anticipated, but it happens.
Absolutely.
It happens. So it doesn't matter what amount of gun control you pass, because the reality of the situation is, with all the guns that are out in America, the majority of the people that own the guns are law-abiding citizens.
All you have to do is look at Europe. You look at Japan, and the spike. There's no guns there, but they have knives.
No, I mean,
They stab each other constantly over there.
and we had a knife stabbing here recently.
Well, yeah, down in Orange County, the guy killed 4 people in a 2-hour robbery spree. He killed 4 people.
And that was today.
Right. Okay, it was today. And
that
again,
was a couple days ago.
I thought
it happened today too.
Oh, another one happened today.
four people
Right.
died,
Four more.
I believe, today from a knife wound. I think you Mark Reed, you put it on your Facebook.
Yeah, that one happened a couple days ago.
Okay.
Yeah, that one happened a couple of days ago. But and I've gone through this battle with everybody on Facebook. I mean, it's been very interesting because, as you're saying, you can't legislate morality. You can't legislate certain evil, events from taking place.
You
It's
can't,
in
no.
human nature.
Right.
However, you can start identifying some of the root causes that these individuals have. The guy in El Paso, Texas, okay? This guy there had a history of violence as a kid in high school. These were both kids,
Right.
mind you. They were under 25, I think 21 years old. The other kid that shot up the Dayton, Ohio, he actually had a rape and kill list of girls. I mean, these red flags were there and evident within his family, within his peers, within the school. We have to look seriously at the root causes of these events, and how do we put into place in school from the younger, all the way in elementary school, all the way up through high school, even in college. Kids are going to go through traumatic circumstances at home, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a majorly dysfunctional house, there's drugs in the house, maybe there's beatings going on. If we don't have real psychologists and nurses in school to work side by side with the teachers to identify these red flags, bring the child in, not embarrass the child, bring the child in and kind of do, what's happening in your life. And then you can bring the family in. If you ascertain that this family needs some kind of help to get through these problems, we should be offering, without a doubt, free of charge, psychological help and therapy. If the family can pay something, let them pay a little bit. But the investment in the youth at that point in time and in a family will save the city and the state and the feds money. Because if the family falls apart, what happens? They're on welfare and everything else. Or if it goes into the massive drastic, because the FBI came out, there was a analyst and profiler that said, look, this is hate that's been conditioned over time, that these individuals no longer look at a human being as a fellow human being. Well, there's just hate.
And I'm gonna touch on something that you said.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, there's a certain percentage of the mass killings that were committed had to do with domestic violence or violence against women. If you think about what happened here in Southern California, and I think the perpetrator was Elliot Hodge, and he was the one in 2014, he killed 7 people. And what did he say? He left the video, and he said, I don't know why you girls aren't attracted to me, but I will punish you all for it. You will finally see that I am in truth the superior one, the true alpha male. When you look at the gentleman that Omar Mateen, who killed 49 people, wounded 53 others in a mass shooting at the Orlando Gay Club, he had a history of domestic violence.
Absolutely did.
And again, so the question is,
well, same thing with the guy who shot up the church in Texas. I mean, he had domestic violence. That's why he was kicked out of the Air Force. He was arrested and convicted of domestic violence in the state of Texas. He went to a neighboring state. This is systemic failures of reporting his disqualification of Second Amendment rights to the DOJ, the federal DOJ.
So then the question becomes, and when you're talking about gun control and you talk about legislating, so then we then pass a national referendum making it illegal for any man who's been convicted or arrested of domestic abuse from owning a gun. The question then becomes...
It's on the books already. You can't. If you've been convicted of domestic violence or even have a restraining order against you, while that restraining order is in effect, you cannot own guns. You have to turn them in. The problem is the systemic failures involved in these agencies reporting it to the state DOJ, the Attorney General's office, and the feds. So when they go to buy a gun, it comes up, and they say, you can't buy one. But on top of that, all of these guys know they can't. So when you fill out your forms to buy a gun, you're committing another felony by saying no.
But again, going back to what I said just a few moments ago.
Yes.
You can't legislate morality. You and I both know. Everybody knows.
Oh, I agree.
If somebody wants to get a gun, they're going to get a gun. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you say. You go out to the street right now. You go out here in Van Nuys somewhere, and you can pick up a Saturday night special. You can pick up an AK. You can pick up anything right now. If you wanted to own a gun, and nobody would know about it, nobody would. And again, it's like I said,
those kind of deals, when somebody is busted with a gun that's either stolen or not registered in their name, which most likely is stolen, that should be a felony. Flat out, should be a felony. This is where you get to the opposite side, and we're going to pick this conversation up right after our break, because we're going to pay our bills right now, Ted.
Absolutely.
Because this is a good segue right to that topic.
Sounds good. Hey.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason on LA Talk Radio. Feel free to call in and give your comments, 818-570-5085. That's 818-570-5085. The Voice of Reason is brought to you by TurchinLaw.com. If you need any legal advice regarding workers' compensation, employment, or labor law, check out TurchinLaw.com, 818-230-3110. We're also brought to you by A1 Law. If you want the #1 computer management system, Check out 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guarantee, $1 a day. A1 Law, last but not least, the voice of reason, is brought to you by Honda. And now back to Ted Durden and Mark Reed on the voice of reason.
All right, go ahead and pick it up, Mark.
Well, this is where it gets into the other aspect of criminality. You can pass laws and new legislation on gun ownership.
Right.
Okay. All you end up doing is taking responsible gun owners and turning some of them into criminals because they may have a gun that's now been banned, or particular features on the gun are now illegal, and you turn them into. But a criminal, does not care about these. The kid that shot up over there in Gilroy at the Garlic Festival, AK-47s in California, unless it's a registered AK-47 here already, you can't buy one here. You can't buy a new one. You can buy them in other states. So he bought it in Arizona and illegally brought it
Actually, it was
to
Nevada.
California.
Do you mean AR-15?
No,
because
it has an
I
AK-47.
wasn't aware you could own an AK-47 in the United States at all.
You can own them in the United States, yes. He bought it in Nevada, where his parents lived. And I believe that even his mother had called up and was questioning the maturity. Expressed the concern, and the police department there in Nevada said, no, but he's of age, he can own it.
Right.
But she was questioning his maturity already. This is where, like I said, if you buy a new gun, you should be trained. You should be brought into an NRA training. Someone who's certified. It doesn't even have to be any NRA, because I say NRA and everybody automatically says, "Oh, you get all your donations." I've never taken money from the NRA. I won't take money from the NRA.
Right.
I am not a member of the NRA because I don't believe they're addressing what the Second Amendment really is about, and that's just your decision. To be able to buy a gun or not buy a gun. It's not about hunting. It's not about protecting yourself from a wild rogue government. All these things that get thrown out there. It's my right to own a gun or not. It's my decision. It's not the government's decision. It's not my neighbor's decision. It's not my mayor's decision. It's not my governor's decision. It's my decision based on my assessment. Now, the state can regulate it to a large degree. Now, when you go in to buy a new one, it should be mandatory that you go in there and get some training on that weapon.
Okay.
And at the same time, that NRA instructor should be able. Let me finish one second.
Let me ask you just a quick question.
Yeah.
So when they go in and they do the training, are they required to pay for the training?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to throw that in.
Why not? You want a gun? Pay for it.
No, I agree. $100,000.
Yeah.
$100,000, because I don't want some people thinking what you're saying, talking about. Now you're going to place the burden on the gun seller.
Oh, hell no.
Okay, good.
No, you got to go in and pay for some training, a 1-hour session, 2-hour session, do some classwork on it as well. At the same time, most of these NRA instructors are ex-military. They're going to pick up on some red flag aspects of you. They're going to be able to tell if you're a freaking nut or not. Okay, what is your reasons for owning this gun? There's a certain amount of criteria. Those red flags could be brought up even at that point of sale of a gun. Now, there's a lot of red-blooded Americans that go out and they buy guns. They love going to the range. They love shooting things up, and it's a lot of fun. I own guns. I enjoy responsible, fun use of my weapon, hitting targets at a distance, a half a mile away with my .308. It's a challenge. I like doing it, but I'm very responsible with my weapons. Okay, and this was part of the argument I got into. We talked a little bit about it in the green room, and that is in hand-to-hand combat in close quarters, which is more lethal and dangerous? Is it a handgun or a knife? It's a knife. Believe it or not, it is a knife. You can have a handgun holstered on your side or in the swell of your back, and if someone charges you, they can actually get to you in 21 feet before you can pull that gun and shoot them.
Chances are.
Yeah. If you walk into a crowded room, okay, the scared coward will show up with a big long gun, boom, 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 discriminately shooting everybody. They're going to hit bodies. They're going to wound and maim a lot of people, kill fewer, right? But with a knife, you can walk in there and stab somebody right in the neck, walk away. Nobody's going to know even what happened.
Well, look at what happened in London, and what happened.
It happens all the time.
Right.
Well, all you got to do is look what kind of murders take place in the tribal regions in Africa. Machetes. They chop people up left and right over there. They
Colombia,
don't have
too.
guns. Colombia, that's
the same thing.
even in Mexico.
Right.
They're chopping people up over there. So again, the argument constantly, the crisis issue that these politicians use constantly. Oh, we got to ban this gun. Oh, we got to ban it. No. It doesn't matter. Look at Timothy McVeigh.
He used the bomb.
He used a rental U-Haul truck,
some fertilizer,
a bunch of fertilizer,
some
nitrate, put it all
Exactly.
in there, walked away, blew a building up, killed 168 people in 2 seconds, and wounded 680 other people.
Thank you.
Okay, so when a person has a serious drive to commit homicides, they will use whatever they want to use.
They'll find a way to do it.
Manhattan, it was Manhattan. The guy rented a truck from Home Depot.
Right.
Drove up the bike path, ran everybody over.
Right.
Look at Vietnam. When the Vietnam War ended, what did they do when they marched all the north to the south? They took tanks and ran over all the refugees.
They sure did.
You know, murderous acts are going to happen because they are evil people and evil players out there. In America, we have the freedom to own a weapon. So we have 350 legally registered weapons in America. We're never going to confiscate all those and drag them out of the society.
No.
Even the ones that they want to ban. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
We have another 300 million probably that aren't registered that are out there as well. We need to start looking and identifying the root causes of why someone turns homicidal.
Okay, I've got one quick question for you. So use a scenario that you just painted, that as far as someone goes in, they require training. And you're right, either ex-military man, ex-cops, so forth,
Right.
And if they pick up on red flags, what do they do with that information? Do they simply pass it on to the federal authorities? Is there something that's going to give them the right not to sell that gun because of some suspicion that they may have?
Again, that turns into legislation.
Right.
Being able to
what's
identify,
the
and if they
answer?
then they need to get psychologically evaluated. At that point,
It'll never happen.
If you're I know it'll never happen.
It'll never happen.
Because you know what? Right now in Congress, you have both Democrats and Republicans who are, how would you say, beholden to the quote unquote NRA.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and
Absolutely.
gun owners. You got a lot of Democrats in the Mid Belt, Rust Belt area that are all hunters. They're not going to ban your right to own guns, okay, because people have rely on them.
Well, it's like you and I were talking about in the green room. Okay, when I say men, I'm talking about gender, men. We have a predilection for violence. We just do. You talk about what the root cause is. The root cause is something that is instilled in a lot of us, if not the majority of us, when we grow up.
But murdering a human being, though, taking
I'm
the life of another is
I'm
not something that's genetically programmed into us.
I'm not talking about that,
Yes.
though, Mark. When I'm
Just
talking
violence, aggression.
I'm just talking about violence and aggression.
that's testosterone.
I know that. But my point is this, though. It is something that when you're a boy, you're made to feel it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. The first toy you get, you were the same, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I got a gun.
Yeah.
I got a toy gun, cap gun.
Yeah.
That was it. Play cops and robbers. Play cowboys and Indians. No offense. Play cowboys and Indians.
I always lost.
I was always a cowboy. That's right. So, I mean,
It sucked being an Indian playing cowboys and Indians. I was lost.
And that's the point. As young men, we're raised to be tough. We're raised to be aggressive.
Right.
And it's somewhere along the way, we get this message of entitlement, especially when it comes to women. We can, you can't tell me no. I remember a long time ago, I was at a club with a guy. I'm talking about in my 20s. And he asked this young lady to dance, and she said no. He went off on her. And I had to snatch his ass back. You don't talk to her that way just because she told you no. But that's part of the
I remember you
aspect.
describing yourself as a chivalrous Southern gentleman.
Absolutely.
And what's not being taught by men, because masculinity is now toxic.
Yeah.
Okay, women don't want men opening the door. They get offended if you buy their dinner for them. But the reality, the way I was taught growing up, is you open the door,
Pull out a chair.
You
pull out
pull
a chair.
out a chair. You talk to them with respect, and if they reject you, it's no big deal. They might be your friend. They may not be your friend, but not every woman is going to be your lover.
Ladies, you can buy me dinner anytime.
You don't have the right color. You don't have the right color of hair, Steve. But that's the way we were taught.
It is.
Because we're living in a social media world right now.
Yes.
Boys do not know how to pick up on signals.
No.
They don't know how to have conversation with women, with girls.
No.
I mean, even though we were taught to be gentlemen.
Absolutely.
Okay, we still showed up at our first high school dance, and we were scared, crudless,
Right.
to ask a girl to dance on the dance floor.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. We were more wallflowers than anything
Well,
else.
exactly. I mean, I'm proud to say, Ted, even on this show, I married my wife. I met her when I was 11.
Mm-hmm.
I gave her a promise ring at 16, and my wife was my first. She was my last, and she will be my forever. That's all there is to
It's
it.
a beautiful thing.
And this is what guys don't understand: is that transition from little boy to man isn't how many conquests
No, it is
that
not.
you have.
It isn't.
It's a matter of taking responsibility for your actions. Now, don't get me wrong. To this day, you and I are both, decent-looking guys. Not that I'm trying to pick up on you now.
I appreciate that because I don't like your legs. but
Exactly. You're not my type either. But women are attracted. I can speak for myself. They're attracted to me because I carry myself with a certain amount of confidence and independence.
Absolutely.
Okay, even though I'm married. But it's a matter of confidence as a man. I can carry myself into any room. I take care of my business like a gentleman, like a man. And it's attractive. It doesn't mean that woman wants to go to bed with me.
No, it
I
does
don't
not.
mix up signals.
No.
I mean, I used to laugh when my brother would go into a restaurant or a bar. Oh, the waitress is flirting with me, or the bartender is flirting with me. No, she's trying to get a bigger tip. That's all she's doing.
Exactly.
It's like,
Exactly.
just take it and enjoy that niceness she's giving to you, right? But guys today are not taught how to really pick up signals.
No, they're not.
But
They're not.
you get back to the shootings. So you remember the shooting up in Alaska?
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
You remember why? He was rejected by his girlfriend.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And he did not know how to deal with it.
No.
So he showed up in the cafeteria and shot everybody.
And see, and that goes back to what I was talking about as far as entitlement is concerned. I mean, it's one thing I don't think that young boys are taught enough about, because I think young boys, and it's a failing as parents.
As parents and as society too.
Well,
mind you.
my point is this: as far as conflict resolution, and I mean, we tell our boys, you're not supposed to show emotion. You're not supposed to cry. You have to be that rock. Okay, you can't show any emotions whatsoever. So what happens is they stuff that down, and when you stuff stuff down,
down.
At some point, I know, right? At some point, it's going to come up and it's going to manifest itself in an extremely ugly way, and it is often violent. Of course, there's always.
Ted, this gets into the relationships that daughters have with their fathers and sons have with their mothers. I used to be able to, as much as my mom went after me and beat me up, and I deserved every beating I ever got, trust me. I earned them, right?
Okay.
But I was able to talk to my mom about deep things. The reason why my wife is my wife to this day isn't because she just kowtows to me and does everything I say. It's because she doesn't do that. She knows how to tell me no in a heartbeat.
Right.
Okay? It's one simple fact. I can trust her with my emotions.
Right, yeah.
How many women do men meet that they can truly trust them with their emotions? I mean, every guy that I know, right, they've gone through a few relationships.
Yes.
The woman gets pissed off, goes out with their best friend. They find them in bed with each other. And it's like, wait a minute. Now, I don't want to commit homicide with anybody, but that would sure really get to me. Without a doubt, it would get at me. But my wife I trust with my emotions, with me. So I talk to her. She's my greatest confidant in the world about everything. She balances me out. She doesn't tell me what I want to hear. Trust me.
She shouldn't just say yes to everything.
She's my best.
No,
she's my
absolutely.
best friend for a reason. She's my wife for another reason.
Right.
Okay. And again, we're going to take a 1-minute break. I really want you guys, if you want to dive into this conversation, call in at 818-570-5085. Again, 818-570-5085. We'd really like to hear from you and hear your opinion on these last shootings. What do you think should be done and how we should be addressing this as a nation, as a community? Thank you again. We're going to pay our bills now.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Ted Durden and Mark Reed. The Voice of Reason is brought to you by TurchinLaw.com. 818-230-3110. That's TurchinLaw.com. If you need any legal advice for workers' compensation, employment, or labor law matters. We're also brought to you by A1 Law, the #1 computer management system, 818-357-4120. And we will be right back on The Voice of Reason after this commercial by Honda.
The power of dreams. I am the front man who drives. My power keeps me ahead in the front line. My reputation gets me on the front page. This is how I drive superiority. By being in the front row.
Okay, and we are back. Welcome back to The Voice of Reason, where the subject of the day is the mass shootings, the cause, and if there are any answers to it. My position is putting forth a national referendum on gun control is going to stem the violence. It might slow it down a little bit with background checks, but like I said, you can't legislate morality. You cannot dictate what someone is going to do. Nobody has a crystal ball. You might be looking for red signs or maybe signals, but not everybody displays them.
What do you think, Ted, about the rhetoric coming out of the presidential candidates about how it's all Donald Trump's fault? It's this rhetoric, it's that rhetoric, it's racism, it's the NRA, and placing blame on everything but the actual shooter himself.
Well, here's the reality of the situation. Okay, there has been mass shootings have tripled since 2011. That means there's a mass shooting almost every 200 days, and
is that because I redefined it as 4 people either being killed or wounded?
Correct.
Because that's when the definition changed, was in 2011.
But the point is this, to the question that you just asked, is that predates Donald Trump getting into office.
Yes.
Now, do I blame him for the mass shootings that have occurred? I don't blame him per se, because he cannot control what somebody else does. However, when you are a national figure, you have to be careful of the rhetoric that you espouse, because of the fact that what happened in El Paso, the gentleman sort of quoted Donald Trump because he saw Mexicans as invading this country, and he felt that something needed to be done about it. But even on that note, the reality is there are fringe supporters in every party.
Yeah, but
you can look at
the person.
for example, what was the political group? What was it called? Green Day?
I don't know. That's
okay.
a fringe
Well,
group for sure.
No. But they were a party, a group that focused on the ecology, and this is what they did. They would go into logging camps and insert spikes in trees. So when the loggers came and would use a chainsaw to cut that tree down, the spikes would explode, often maiming, sometimes killing people.
Right.
Okay? So again, there's fringe supporters in every party. Now, did Donald
Okay,
Trump intend for that? Did Donald Trump?
Everybody's focusing on El
No, but-
Paso, Texas, but Dayton,
No, no.
Ohio.
No.
Dayton, Ohio.
No, but the point is-
was a white devil worshiper that was supportive of Elizabeth Warren.
But wait a minute.
But
Wait a minute, Mark.
Okay,
but
go
but
ahead.
no. But the reality is, and this is just a fact. This is just
Okay,
a fact.
I
Okay,
understand.
Okay, that since Donald Trump has been in office, there has been greater racial animus since he's been in office against blacks, against Hispanics, against Jews. There has been. Now, here's the reality of it, and I'm going to broaden this a little bit.
Okay.
Broaden a little bit what you're talking about. Trump is a nationalist.
right.
Okay.
I get that.
Here's a challenge with nationalism, and I'm going to say, because he's white, it's white nationalism. An often foreseeable, unintended consequence of nationalism is racism. The last person that I'm going to talk about that talked about nationalism was Malcolm X. Malcolm X talked about separatism, and he also talked about black nationalism. What did that result in? That resulted in racism from blacks against whites. It was a foreseeable, unintended consequence. Now, do I blame Donald Trump for all of these mass shootings? Absolutely not. You can talk about Sarah Palin. Well, what happened to that senator when she got shot? Because at one of her rallies, Sarah Palin said, what we need to do with these Democrats is put bullseye on their backs. Now, did she?
Well,
now,
how do you think? What do you think about? What do you think about the entertainment industry coming up with this new show now called The Hunt?
Oh yeah, and they decided to delay. Delay the
But I mean,
premiere.
how obscene can that be? That's the far left.
That's insane.
Hunting the deplorables.
Right, that's insane. It's no different than when we talk about violence. And again, you had a congresswoman that talked about video games. Again, video games glorifying violence. You ask about what's at the root of it. That's all at the root of it.
That's a
Because
part
let
of it.
me tell you what happens with violence in video games. What it does is it numbs the player
Conditions
against
them.
against violence.
Conditions.
That it's okay. They don't think about the long-term effects. There was a kid that killed his mother that did not understand that once he killed her, that she was really dead. He couldn't believe it.
It was years back. These two kids down in the South. Okay, their father was a pig farmer, and they sat there and they helped the father slaughter pigs, and so they wanted to see what it was like to slaughter a human being. So they went and they got an 11-year-old girl and slaughtered her.
Right.
Okay, the conditioning that takes place in society, it goes right back to kind of a comment that Michael Reagan said on his last show when he said he was there just before a pastor came out before him and spoke and said, the problem in society is there's no prayer in school anymore. This is the problem that's taking place. And Michael got him, altered his entire speech and said, wait a minute, how many of you have school-age children here? And 100 of them raised their hand or so. And he said, how many of you said prayer before you went to school with them? And all their hands went down. Everything is stemming from the house.
Absolutely.
If you're going to turn your kid over to your iPhone, okay, your Samsung Galaxies or whatever the heck else is out there, and you're going to let them babysit and play games, you're going to give up that foundational morality, okay, that character, to something that could be evil, could be good, could be whatever.
I agree.
Parents need to start taking responsibility for what the outcome of their child is. Now, granted be, you can have children that do have mental illness, bipolar, schizophrenias, and things that are just there genetically that show up. But we're talking about when this FBI profiler came out and started talking about these last 3 murders, mass killings that took place, she was talking about hatred. And hatred is not a mental disorder. Hatred is a conditioning and patterning of an individual who's had some traumatic experiences in their youth. And they in order to hide that pain, that emotional pain, they start hating something, and hating it fosters and fosters and festers into a massive wound in them. And then they lash out in society. This again is where the home, that mother that called the police department and said, I don't think my child is mature enough to own an AK-47, it's like, hey, the cops are like, well, hey, He bought it legally. Why didn't those cops just show up at the house and just say, "Hey, kid, what do you got this for?" Scare the crap out of him a little bit.
They should have done that.
They should have done something.
And
Ted, earlier you might have been referring to eco-terrorism, an act of violence committed in support of ecological or environmental causes against people or property.
Right.
Eco-terrorism.
Yes.
Correct.
Putting
Correct.
spikes in the trees.
Yeah. Now you.
You're terrorizing the tree, really.
What you said was a very good point. But as far as hatred is concerned, it isn't just about it is about parenting, but sometimes the reality is sometimes hatred is taught and sometimes it is a learned behavior. Because we all know when babies are born pure. They don't know anything about hatred. They don't know anything about racism. They don't know anything about discrimination. Yes, can it be the result of traumatic events? Absolutely. Absolutely, but it is something.
When you say it's taught and learned, that's one and the same. Okay, whether it's
not,
it's taught or learned in the home versus outside of the home.
No, not necessarily, because see, you can be taught something, but you can learn by observing. You don't have to be taught it directly. You can learn by osmosis, by being exposed to it, by picking up on it, but it does not necessarily have to be taught.
I understand what you're saying.
So and that's all I'm talking about. But you're right. It does begin in the home with the morals that we instill into our children, how we teach them about conflict resolution, how to deal with disappointment and sadness, how to deal when you run across a bully, how you deal with rejection. Yes, it absolutely begins at home. Period.
Okay. President Trump has now come out and has endorsed the red flag law, which is, are you familiar with the
Yes.
framework of the red flag law?
Yes,
now,
I
I actually came out for that 6 years ago and got ridiculed heavily by gun owners, by people who were pro-gun. And I said there's nothing wrong with it so long as you have protections of the due process of gun owners, that nobody can just walk in and say, yeah, I think he's a nut, and you take all his guns away from him. That doesn't work that way.
Right.
But to my surprise, I found out that, California has had the red flag law in existence for over a decade, a couple decades.
Yeah, I think it's about 15 years.
Yeah, about 15 years.
Right.
Do you know how many cases that it's been used in?
How many?
Maybe a half a dozen. I mean, this again is where you're giving our law enforcement agencies a tool to use it. And trust me, I've come into some people that should not own guns. There's no questions about it.
Agreed.
Who do you turn to? How do you turn to them? How do you effectively get these tools, weapons of kill, death out of their hands? Now, I honestly also believe that if you have an individual in your house that has been deemed a threat to themselves or a threat to society, you should not have guns in that house.
In the house,
either,
period.
Even
No,
if there's
not
10
at
other
all.
people in there that are
Right.
A-OK.
Right.
Because you're allowing that person, and let me tell you, people with mental disorders, they're not all crazy. They're not all murderers either.
No, they're not.
But there's some of them, most of them are very extremely intelligent people. So if all of a sudden they decide, I want to, go out and kill somebody, they're going to watch you, and they're going to watch you log in your code into your safe,
Right.
your gun safe, and they're going to get them out of there.
Absolutely.
So I honestly believe, so long as you're dealing with something like that, those weapons should not be in the house at all.
I agree with you 100%.
And there should be checkups on those things. Again, we have a certain amount of laws on the books. We need to standardize them throughout the 50 states, allow the states to implement them. One of the things the NRA doesn't want, and most gun owners don't want, is a registry of guns and gun owners. I honestly, they don't need that, but they should have a up-to-date registry of anybody who has lost their Second Amendment rights through due process.
There should be a national registry for that.
National, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. A national registry through the FBI, the Attorney General's office. That when you do your background check, okay, and it's 10 days, or I don't even care if it's extended to 21 days.
Right.
But I also believe, like I said, there should be some basic training. Every state has some kind of a long gun, handgun safety certificate as well that you have to renew every 5 years. I think when you go in to renew it, you should show that you've been to the gun range at least once a year. And on the 5th year to renew it, you should have, at your cost, a 1-hour training session, once again, with every weapon you own, with a instructor of some kind.
I agree. And here's,
Okay.
here's the funny thing about what you're saying.
Yeah.
The funny thing, and the reason I'm kind of chuckling, is because of the fact that you have to do the same thing
The driver's
in order to get a
license.
driver's
Yeah.
license. Absolutely.
Yeah, let me tell you, a driver's license is a car is a 5,000-pound,
Projectile.
lethal
Absolutely.
weapon.
Yeah,
It's a
it most
lethal.
certainly is.
A cop can shoot you if you aim your car at him to run him over because
Yeah.
you're attacking him with a lethal weapon.
Absolutely.
And you have to be trained. You have to be retrained. You have to show that you're proficient in the use of that lethal weapon,
Right.
a car or a truck,
Right.
every I don't know, a couple of years or so.
But not with a gun.
not with a gun.
Not
I
with
mean-
a gun. It's just beyond
But again,
the pale,
the-
and it's
the-
just mind-boggling.
The flip side of all of that is, once again, is the criminal justice system has to take serious crimes that are committed with the guns.
Absolutely.
Now, Jerry Brown, while he was in office, he removed the sentencing enhancement of crimes committed with guns. And we're going to expand on that. We're going to go ahead and pay our bills and take one more break here. See you in a minute.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Ted Durden and Mark Reed. The Voice of Reason is brought to you by TurchinLaw.com. If you need workers' compensation, employment and labor law, legal advice, check out TurchinLaw.com, 818-230-3110. The Voice of Reason is also brought to you by A1 Law. If you want the best computer management system, 818-357-4120. The Voice of Reason is also brought to you by Honda. And now back to Ted Durden and Mark Reed on The Voice of Reason. Guys, we had a text come in, and it's a very simple question, but I suspect the answer is not as simple. And it reads this: should someone with mental illness be prohibited from owning a gun?
And we'll get right to that. Anybody listening to the show, if you have a question you'd like to call in, please call in at 818-570-5085. Again, 570-5085.
Okay, here's the reality. I'm gonna give a first shot at this, Mark, then you can jump in.
All righty.
Okay, should the mentally ill own a gun? It's a slippery slope. I think if you have someone that has been diagnosed with a certain mental illness who has demonstrated that they are prone to violence, absolutely not, because there's all different types of mental illnesses that are out there. There are those that are mentally ill that have the mental capacity of a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old and don't pose a threat to themselves or to society at large. But if you have demonstrated that you have a propensity for violence, if you have violent outbreaks or lash out violently, no, you should not own a gun. That's my opinion on it. Mark?
I had a great response to one of my Facebook posts in objecting to the concept that it's a mental disease or a mental disorder or illness. And they were absolutely correct. Not all people with mental disorders or mental illnesses are going to commit violent crimes or mass shootings.
Correct.
However, every mass shooter that has committed a mass murder has had a mental illness. And it's because they are prone, like you said, they're prone to violence. This is where, again, this red flag law gives the ability of law enforcement, after a certain amount of incidents and contacts with the police department have been proven to be a threat to themselves or to the community, go up in front of a court. They get their Second Amendment rights temporarily suspended. All their weapons are confiscated, held into an evidence room until it's determined whether or not they have that problem. We need to do that proactively rather than reactively. And absolutely, it's not about mental illness. It's really about, is a person a threat to themselves or a threat to the community?
Right now,
Because you can have people that are, and again, you look at a person who has a 5-year-old mentality and they're 35 years old, they shouldn't own a gun either. They might accidentally kill themselves.
that's true, but I'm going to take some issue with what you said.
Okay.
Because you said every person that's committed a mass murder has been mentally ill. Now, again, that's a slippery slope. What defines mental illness? Because of the fact that if you look at the DSM-4, somebody that has a personality disorder, and that could be any sort of personality disorder. You could be depressed, you could be manic, and that might qualify you as being mentally ill. I don't believe that's true. I would disagree with you on that point. I don't believe that every person has had a mental illness. If you take a look at Stephen Paddock, he was the one that who did that shooting in Las Vegas. As far as I know, this is a man who was wealthy, had a great life, had no issues whatsoever. The only thing that they've been able to seize on is that he was diagnosed with cancer. I don't think, as I know right now, if they ever came up with what his motive was for shooting all those people. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't heard anything about it.
I think the Las Vegas case still has not been fully disclosed what took place. Now, he had some nefarious ties to gun runners. Mm-hmm. He had some nefarious ties to terrorist groups. He had ties to the CIA, the FBI. He had ties to the Obama administration. He sold one of his jets, actually, to Obama.
Okay.
I personally, not that I don't like diving into conspiracy theories, okay? But I know weapons enough and understanding of the top floor that he was on, shooting down into a crowd. He had bought tracer bullets.
Yes, he
so
did.
So he could see where, but he didn't use any of them, okay? That kind of shooting that he did actually takes a certain measure of skill of which he really kind of didn't have. Okay, he did not go to the gun range all the time.
Correct. But he wasn't mentally ill.
I understand he wasn't mentally ill,
Right.
but was he used by some terrorist group and in arms sales to take him out? Some people have said flat out that he was dead before the shooting even took place. That there could have been a couple of people in another room that were actually doing the shootings. And when that one guy, the bellhop, came up, or security guard that came up, and they shot through the door because they had cameras in there to chase him away, they went ahead and finished up what they were doing, left the guns there, and walked to their other room, and they were never caught because there was no other security cameras up there. I think there's a certain amount of these things that are happening that we don't know fully of what really transpired there, because that is a very, very unique situation and a massive tragedy that was really planned out, skilled, inconsistencies with a person living in a hotel room. I think he was in there for 10 days?
Yeah, something like that, right.
Over a week, and he refused any maid service up there. They never went in and cleaned the rooms. He was caught on security cameras bringing up a multiple of bags.
Bags and boxes, right.
Multiple of bags and stuff going up there. He had the bump stocks. He knew flat out that those aren't, and people say military grade. Those aren't, any of the AR-15s or even AK-47s you buy are not military grade. They're military design, but they're not military grade. So you take a bump stock on an average AR-15 and you start shooting through it, you're going to melt the receiver. And that's why they jammed.
Right,
okay,
but
so he
see,
just shot through it until the jam threw that one down, picked up another one, and started shooting with it. You know, if it was him, that to me has always been a very sticky, interesting case, the one in Las Vegas.
Well, yeah, but even the one that I told you about, Elliot Hodge. Okay, Elliot Hodge, because girls didn't like him.
Yeah, well, he has a pattern now.
Okay, but again, but see, here's my concern. My concern is, I don't want to demonize and I don't want to villainize the mentally ill. I don't want to. I don't.
No,
well, no.
And I think I haven't done that.
Well, but Mark, just a moment ago, you said every mass shooting has been committed by somebody that's mentally ill. That's casting a broad blanket. And let me tell you my opinion on that.
Yeah.
Okay, my opinion on that is this. In order for us to sleep at night,
right,
we have to have a demon. There has to be a devil in the room. Because if we were to sit back and close our eyes at night and say, okay, my neighbor next to me could turn into a mass killer and there's nothing wrong with him. My neighbor that lives in front of me, wow, damn, I could wake up tomorrow morning and they could be standing on my lawn doing a spray down. Mm-hmm. Because in order for America society to sleep soundly at night, there has to be a devil in the room. And right now, politicians are blaming it on the mentally ill, and they're blaming it on video games. And I'm sorry, you cannot cast that wide a blanket and say that that's what the problem is.
I don't know about you two, but I have a pit bull.
Ted, I'm going to clarify it once again. That it's not the mentally ill. There's been mentally ill individuals and identified as the shooters. They've had a history of violence. They've had histories of domestic violence. They've had a history of being outcast. They've had histories of being bullied. They've had a tremendous amount of history. The mentally ill, 99.9% of them are just fine in society and function just fine in society.
They don't commit crimes
at all. So I'm not
all.
casting any kind of a broad cast of all the mentally ill. My mom was mentally ill.
My mistake then. My bad.
And so I want to clarify that without a question, because the mentally ill, the community that have, bipolar, schizophrenia. My brother was mentally ill, and he was balanced out with medication. So I'm not casting that cast out, and the psychiatric community says, look, 1 out of every 5 Americans have a mental issue. To what degree do they have it?
Exactly.
And I agree with that. If 1 out of 5, they're all killers. No, they're not killers. We all have issues. Somebody say, people say I'm mentally ill. I'm running for office. I'm mentally ill.
You crazy?
Okay, I'm a crazy guy. And so it's so I don't cast that out there. What I'm saying is that what we're at the crossroads of now on a national level is creating a universal standardized background check of everybody who wants to buy a gun. I think there has to be some basic training involved, and these are implemented by the states. Basic training when you buy a new weapon. I think your gun safety certificates that are issued, it should be mandatory that you visit the range, because you want to be proficient in the use of that weapon, that tool. On the 5th year, you need to have a instructor training. Just a 1 hour, brush up that this instructor puts his name on there. Says you're A-OK with this thing. And again, then you do the flip side of criminality, of crimes that have been committed with guns. It should be the harshest of penalties.
I agree, 100%.
There's no question, because it is not it's a constitutional right, but it's a right that can be removed, just like a driver's license. If you're irresponsible in the ownership of a weapon, it should be removed. But the flip side is if you have a gun that has been stolen, you should go to jail. No questions about it. If you steal a gun.
Wait. Pause.
Yes, sir.
If you have a gun stolen.
No, if you have a gun in your possession that has been stolen from somebody else.
I misunderstood what you said.
No.
I'm like, wait a minute, Mark.
You're going to touchy here. Take it easy.
Wait a minute, man.
It's the flip side of both. I enjoy the use of my weapons, but I understand the responsibility of owning these weapons as well. I have a gun safe. I go to the gun range a couple times a month. I'm very good at them. I enjoy them immensely. But it's a tool to me. It's also a challenge when I go in there with my 308s and I do target range from long distance. It's fun. That's fun to me. I have introduced guns to a lot of people who've never had a gun in their hands before, and they get over that fear of the gun.
Absolutely.
And they enjoy it, actually. They become enjoying it. It empowers them. And they understand that then at that moment, they understand the individual responsibility of a gun owner. This is a powerful tool.
Absolutely.
On those notes, I think there's a tremendous amount that legislation could be passed, that could keep guns out of the hands of individuals who should not have them. I think there should be a national background check, a universal background check implemented by the states themselves. I think that there should be a consequence for any agency in any state that does not report anybody who has lost their Second Amendment rights to the federal Attorney General's office and the FBI, so that way they can be denied. I also believe that the fact that when you go in and you fill out your form to buy a gun or transfer a gun into your name, if you lied on that and you committed, what do you call that? Perjury,
Right.
that you should be tried, because 58,000 of these have been rejected, but nobody's been convicted of it. We need to start addressing these issues and the systemic problems, because people's lives are in the crosshairs when we failed to do this. Again, Ted, this has been a wonderful show, and I think that we really need, and the basic public out there needs to start engaging in civil dialogue of the real root causes of issues that we face in our communities today. Ted,
I
go
agree.
ahead and take it home. We're
Right.
wrapping up the show.
Like anything else, it comes down to responsible gun ownership. That's what it comes down to. We want to thank you for bringing us into your living rooms, bringing us into your homes, listening to the civil discourse that Mark and I have every week on political issues of the day. It has been our utmost pleasure keeping you informed this evening. And remember, ignorance prevails when rational minds sit back and do nothing. Stay informed.
You've been listening to The Voice of Reason with Ted Durden and Mark Reed. The Voice of Reason is brought to you by turchinlaw.com. If you need workers' compensation, employment, or labor law legal advice, check out turchinlaw.com. 818-230-3110. The Voice of Reason is also brought to you by A1 Law and Honda. For Ted Durden and Mark Reed, my name is Steve Appel.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Mark Reed and Ted Durden, only on LA Talk Radio.
The power of dreams. I am the front man who drives. My power keeps me ahead in the front line. My reputation gets me on the front page. This is how I drive superiority. By being in the front row.